suddenly articulate with 1,000 tongues to lift one cry. From north to south and east to west, we'd hear Christ be magnified. With the whole earth echoing his eminence, his name would burst from sea and sky. From rivers to the mountain tops, we'd hear Christ be magnified. Christ be magnified. Oh, Christ be magnified. Just let his praise arise. Christ be magnified in me. Oh, Christ be magnified from the altar of my life. Christ be magnified in me. When every creature finds its inmost melody, and every human heart its native cry, then in wide enraptured hymn of praise, we'd sing Christ be magnified. Singing, oh, Christ be magnified. Just let his praise arise. Christ be magnified in me. Singing, oh, Christ be magnified from the altar of my life. Christ be magnified in me. I won't bow, and I won't bow to idols. I'll stand strong and worship you. If it puts me through the fire, I'll rejoice 'cause you're there too. I won't be formed by feelings. Hold fast to what is true. 'Cause if the cross brings transformation, you can't hang me there with you. 'Cause death is just a doorway into resurrection life. And if I join you in your suffering, then I'll join you when you rise. And when you return in glory with the angels and the saints, my heart will still be singing, and my song will be the same. Oh, Christ be magnified. Let his praise arise. Christ be magnified in me. Oh, Christ be magnified from the altar of my life. Christ be magnified in me. Christ be magnified in me. Oh.
Hello, Upper School. This is Dr. Jennings with your chapel for Wednesday, April 15th. It's good to be with you again. We are now 4 weeks into this, and so hopefully we're starting to get the hang of it a little bit. Every day we get a little bit better at doing this. Every day, even more, we get closer to this being done, which is what I'm really excited about. Last Sunday was Easter Sunday. And so one of the texts that's a famous text on Easter, you might have even been a part of your Easter, is from John 11, when Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. And I want to look at that today. It's a bit of a longer passage, so I'm not going to put it up on the screen and share it with you. I'm just going to read, but it comes from John chapter 11, beginning with verse 17. Now, when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, but Mary remained seated in the house. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world." And when she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary, saying in private, "The teacher is here and is calling for you." And when she heard it, she rose quickly and went to him. Now, Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, saw Mary rise quickly and go out, they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Now, when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet, saying to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. And he said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man also have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, by this time there'll be an odor. He's been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me." When he said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips and his face wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." The word of the Lord. The popular, well-known miracle. It's one of the big ones, right? There's walking on water, there's calming the storm, there's raising Lazarus. What's interesting about this story is right before, earlier in chapter of John 11, we know that they sent for Jesus. Jesus wasn't that far away. And they'd sent, Mary and Martha had sent for Jesus because Lazarus was sick. And Jesus receives the news and he deliberately delays. He doesn't go, he waits on purpose. This is sort of sets the stage from where we come here. And I want to look at something here. I want to look at the similarity between what Martha does, what Mary does, and what the mourners do. They all do basically the same thing. So here comes Jesus. He approaches. He's coming out. He said, "Now it's time to go." And as he comes near, Martha, one of the sisters of Lazarus, Martha rushes out to him, and says to Jesus, "Lord, if you had only been here, my brother wouldn't have died." That's a huge statement in and of itself. It's because Martha is saying, "Lord, I know you could have saved him. I know you have this amazing power to heal. You're the great physician. You could have changed the circumstances if you had only been here. It didn't have to be like this." I don't think she's angry at Jesus. I just think she's saying, if only you'd been here. And then they have a conversation. Jesus and Martha. And I want to come back to that conversation. So just hold that for a second. Just hold that for a second. Then we get to Mary. Mary, Martha sends for Mary. And actually, you can tell the intent is Jesus wants to have the same conversation with Mary that he's had with Martha, because Jesus is still in the spot where he and Martha had the conversation. Jesus didn't come into the area yet. He's still out of ways. So Mary gets up. Martha tells him the teacher is nearby. So she rushes out to Jesus. Now, those who are with Mary, who are in the house, they see her get up and they think she's going to mourn, a different location. So they get up with him. So the scene shifts, right? Instead of just being Jesus and Martha, and then Jesus and Mary, it's sort of Jesus and Mary and all of those mourners. Mary does the same thing. She falls to her knees and she says to Jesus, "If you had only been here, my brother would not have died." Same thing Martha said. Same thing. Now, Mary and Jesus don't have an ongoing conversation like Martha and Jesus do. And I don't think that's because there's something less about Mary. I think the situation is different. The mourners all here. Speaking of the mourners who have come out, they essentially say the same thing. Like when they look at Jesus and they see the distress, they even see Jesus weeping, and they remark on how Jesus must have cared, just loved this man Lazarus so much. But they also say, couldn't he who made the blind man see have saved Lazarus? So if you look at it, Martha, Mary, and the mourners are all three saying the same thing. Man, if you'd been here, Jesus. If you'd been here, Jesus. You could have stopped all of this if you had just been here. I get that. And I get it. There are those times when things just are not well, when either people close to you are suffering or you're suffering, or the whole world seems to be off its axes. And you want to say, man, Jesus, you can fix this. I know you can fix this. You can fix this. And so we sin for Jesus, and it seems like he delays or doesn't come at all. If you'd only been here. Martha had this conversation, which I was talking about. Martha had this conversation with Jesus. And she even says, but I know that whatever you ask, God will give to you. Seems like huge faith. And it is. And her faith is holding on. She's holding on by a thread. And Jesus says, your brother will live again. And at that moment, she says, I know that. I know. But she's not talking about like what's just about to happen. She's talking about the end of history, right? Martha says, I know he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. See, the idea was that on the very last day of history, right, God would vindicate his people, and those who'd been faithful would rise up, right, and have life. That's what she's referring to. She has no idea of what Jesus is about to do. We know she has no idea, because when they get to the tomb and Jesus says to clear the entrance, Martha is the one who protests. Martha says, don't do it. There'll be an odor. He's been dead for 4 days. If Martha thought Jesus was about to call her brother back to life, she wouldn't be saying, it's going to stink. She's in the same place that Mary and the mourners are, that so many of us are. If you'd only been here. If you'd only been here. It's interesting. twice in this passage. I read it, the English translation read, um, Jesus was deeply moved. In fact, once it's like he's deeply moved and that's why he weeps. Now, the mourners, when they see his weeping, they think he's weeping because he's mourning. But Jesus isn't mourning. That's not why he's weeping. Remember, he waited. He deliberately waited until he knew Lazarus would be dead. He's not weeping because he's mourning. And the key is that deeply distressed. The Greek word behind deeply distressed there, it is not one of sadness. It's a word that really sort of depicts indignation. Jesus isn't weeping because he's sad that his friend Lazarus has died. That's why you and I weep. That's why Martha was weeping. That's why Mary was weeping. That's why the mourners were weeping. That's not why Jesus is weeping. The deeply moved, the word behind that is he had a indignation on him. He was weeping because he was also angry. Now I know that kind of weeping. That's the kind of weeping that happens when someone very dear to you has just done something that just hurts, and you're upset at what's happened to them, but you're also upset at them. So the weeping has all that emotion in it. If you had only been here, everyone kept saying. They thought Jesus' ability and power to remedy the situation had ended. The window had closed when Lazarus died. When Jesus is upset, that they think he can't do anything. They think that now is too late. They don't realize, they don't believe, they don't know that it's not over. He is the resurrection and the life. That's not what they're seeing. They think he's the great physician, and he is the great physician. He absolutely is the great physician. He not only can heal in miraculous ways, but he gives us an understanding. God gives us an understanding of our body. God gives doctors and scientists understanding of how viruses work and how antibodies work and how our bodies work. Like, that's all sort of part of this great act of a physician. Yes, Jesus is the great physician, but he's so much more. He didn't come to show them he's the great physician. That's what they thought they needed. What Jesus is about to do is to tell them he's so much more. He's the resurrection and the life. He's the resurrection and the life in every way. One, he's the resurrection and the life, and that he himself will be dead and then buried, crucified, dead, buried, and alive again. That's the centerpiece of our faith. The centerpiece of our faith is not a philosophy. It's not a worldview. It's not a political platform. It's he is alive. Why do you sing in church? Because he is alive. Why do you read the Bible? Because he is alive. Why do you pray? Because he is alive. Why do you go to church? Because he is alive. Why do you have hope? Because he is alive. That's the centerpiece. That's the lead of our faith. He's also in the resurrection and life, and that he is the one who will call that which isn't in. He is the one which that which is dead. He will quicken. He will give his great life, the life of the empty tomb. He will share with those who are with his children. He's the resurrection and life, also in that life right now, a life in him is what's available to you and me, to live a life that is a life in him. He's the resurrection and the life. And a life in him is one full of joy. A life in him is one full of hope. A life in him is one that knows that, yes, Good Friday was dark, but Sunday dawned. A life in him knows that no matter how deep the pit, he is stronger. He's more than a great physician. That's what we know. And so to prove that, to show that he is the resurrection of life, he calls out to a man who's been dead 4 days. Says, Lazarus, come forth. And I always felt bad for Lazarus. He's got to die again. Like he comes, he comes alive. He's like, hey. And then we know actually in the story of John, not too long, much later, he'll die again. No plot to kill him. Rather, he is the resurrection and the life. That is the joy that you and I have. That we're not just hanging on, hoping for someone who can just fix us for a moment, that can just heal us for a moment. We have faith in the one that says, I am more than the great physician. I am the resurrection and the life. Jesus said to them, did I not tell you you would see the glory of God? So as we sort of get on this side of Easter, we have the run up to Easter. Now we're living on the other side. Brothers, sisters, students, let us live a life that says, yeah, I believe he came out of that tomb. And that has made all the difference. That is why I have hope. That is why I have joy. As Jesus is alive. Thank you for letting me take this time to just share this word with you. I hope you have a good rest of your week. And I can't wait to see you again. Peace.